All right, welcome to Too Fat. I can't do it.
Oh, so this was going to be
The
you and
intro.
Jillian together.
We wrote down a song. We came up with a song. So let me some background. We traveled to Tennessee this weekend, and we listened to the podcast together on the way down.
Who?
Jillian and myself.
How old is Jillian now?
Well, she's 10.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So she's like, "You need a song," and I'm like, "Yeah." And then I started vibing, and she came up with some really good stuff, and then I totally forgot to write it down. But it's so silly. Two fat dads talking about things. Two fat dads. They don't have any hair.
Well, I mean, that's true.
It is true. So, hey, so how surprised were you about our views on YouTube?
Well, I thought we were going to get two, one where you had watched it and
Right.
one where I had.
Mm-hmm.
And I whipped like 150.
Oh, it's over 150, and we have like 15 subscribers.
Yes. Fools who maybe don't have anything better to do.
Nothing better to do with their lives than listen to us.
Okay. I do want to give a shout out before we do anything else. My wife is behind me.
Hi, Charlotte.
She cannot think of anything she'd rather do than stay quiet for the next hour listening to me talk.
Perfect.
So this is a real treat for her.
And I have to ask you, Steve, how does it feel to finally be cool and popular?
I still don't know. How many fan letters did you get this week?
Oh, tons.
Really? I got none. I am exactly as popular as I thought it would be. You have clearly taken over as you're the Diana Ross and I'm the Supremes.
Right. Well, I mean, that's pretty natural. That's how it's been. Everything that's good that's happened to you has been because of me, of course.
Well, there is what shared reflected glory. That's nice. It's helpful.
Right. No, I did get many compliments. I'm very thankful to everyone who reached out and said a few things and did say things about you, because not many of, not a lot of my friends know you. They complimented our friendship. They complimented our chemistry. They complimented our voices. And I said to you, I haven't even broken out my radio voice yet.
Well, there it is.
No, that's not really it. I don't know what my radio voice is.
I have tried with my beautiful wife to do a little bit of the naughty talk. Mm-hmm. And, I try to use kind of a sexy voice, and I end up sounding kind of like a creeper uncle. Where, I say, hey, you're looking sexy, girl. And she starts to shiver. Hey, and I remind her.
Welcome to the reunion.
I bring back terrible memories for her. So I don't try that anymore.
Wasn't it that, now I do apologize if Charlie doesn't want me to say this, but I love that you would ask her for dirty pics and she'd send pictures of her feet or something like dirty. Like her dirty feet.
What she would send me is pictures of her at work with like a scowl. So you'd say, send me shots. I've not gotten any of these, and again, like I said during the first episode, by the way, I've discovered when I do this, my hands look enormous as they come toward the camera. So I am going to try to not do that. But, so I'll say like, hey, send me pictures of your dirty pillows or whatever. Mm-hmm. And then I'll get this picture of her scowling at me because she's at work. When she's at work, she actually works. I don't know
That's
what's up
odd.
with that.
Who does that?
No,
I don't know. I was just going to go into things that I always, okay. So you had mentioned, man, we're going to go into some corrections from last podcast.
Yes.
But one thing that has popped up, the one I want to address quickly is sometimes I get surprised by what women compliment me on. Because guys, it's almost like, it kind of feels like sometimes guys compliments towards women, you can guess what they all are. Oh, you're beautiful. Oh, you have a great body, or what, but girls.
Sexy brain.
Right. That's a very popular one. I've gotten a lot of compliments about my voice, which I was like, huh? I've always hated my voice.
Yeah,
always.
Me too. I hate your voice.
Oh, I know. Especially, yeah. So I would try to send you I would try to compensate for Charlie and send you the dirty messages, and it just never worked
It's never
out.
the same. It's not
Never
any
the
good.
same. My hands, I had been complimented on my hands, my shoulders. That's about it.
Okay.
Yeah. You nothing though, right?
Nothing. I didn't expect
Nothing.
anything.
Okay. So that's a dead end. So let's move on. um, so it was funny to do a podcast and to kind of have some scattered thoughts. And as I rewatched it, I realized, oh, I never went down that road, that train of thought. I forgot to circle back around and talk
Yeah.
about this. And one thing, sometimes you would talk and I couldn't hear your response. And it was just getting used to this kind of back and forth, and how to do it. And one thing that I need to correct is we're talking about, I brought up this silly joke about, well, we both have gay sons, so we are allowed to make gay jokes. It was just a dumb joke. And then I went and talked about Cohen having black cousins. I need to correct it. It did not mean that he thought it was okay to make black jokes. So that was a big correction that I wanted to make from last.
Oh, because that is exactly how I took it.
I know. So I cringed when I watched that again. I'm like, oh no, I did not hear that. I did not mean to go down the road. What I wanted to say is that Cohen is so incredibly proud. He just is. I've tried to explain to him, you're not 25% black. He's like, Dad, I am. and he loves it. He has admired black athletes forever, and he's amazing, and he loves his cousins, and he loves that they're black. That's what I want to correct.
That's a good correction. I've got one myself. So there's this singles podcast that you'd been on a couple times, and you had said that, you said you should be on there, Steve, and they said they didn't want me. I think because they want people who are single. No, but seriously, they weren't interested one way or another. So I was thinking it would be fun, kind of a little bit of banter, and I kind of poked at them. They could put, and it just, in listening to it, I realized it came across as much more snarky than I wanted it to. So and I was just trying to kind of tease a little bit. And I came across as way more than teasing. So
one of their main people is a subscriber to our channel now.
Why? Okay, great.
He's a great guy. I don't have permission. His name's Everett. He's amazing. You didn't see the comment, he commented under my post when I posted our podcast under my Facebook page, the link to it. And then he said, loved it, watched it. It's awesome. I'm a subscriber. And then I was like, what? Wait, you're my enemy. You're my rival. I said, every good podcast needs a rival.
That's kind of what I was going for, but I just felt like those were more than just friendly lobs.
What? Well, we have chosen the Famous Fireside podcast as our rivals, right?
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
They are the dark, dirty side of our two-sided
100%. You don't realize this, but they were all here this weekend.
Oh, were they?
Yes, I'm at a singles event this weekend, and they're most of them are here. Most of the Famous Fireside people were here.
I thought there were 3 of them.
There's 3 or 4 of them. Some of the hosts kind of come and go, they have they're always a few, 2 or 3 hosts,
Okay.
And then they also do it live. They record it and do it live, I think, mainly through Facebook, if I'm not mistaken. We're basically live too. We haven't done any editing yet.
No, despite probably needing to.
Right. We need to have, like I said, we need to really keep working on that really catchy song, Two Fat Dads.
Okay, now, is there...
In my head now.
Thank you. Is there another Two Fat Dads out there somewhere?
There is. So at some point, I expect us to be sued. We're going to be sued, which is actually great because there's no such thing as bad press, right? We're going to make the news. It's going to be on CNN. It's going to be as big as Amber Heard and Johnny Depp.
Maybe even bigger.
maybe bigger,
Because like
because
there's more than one personality
we're
disorder
going to do way more than
involved
just
here.
poop in their bed.
Yes, which is exactly what someone who is terrified of their husband would do.
You
I
know
mean,
what? That was one of the
really,
topics I wanted to talk about.
when I am really scared of someone, first thing I do, go over to their house, crap in their bed.
Right.
And I'm
There-
just
yeah.
like, oh no,
It's the trump card, right? You can't do any, it's done, game over.
game over. And especially if you do it in front of friends.
Right.
when I heard that, I just wow. Yeah.
Did you follow it?
Well, my wife followed it, and so I followed it through her, which is how I keep up on most things.
Right. Charlotte's always on the cutting edge.
Yes. She's a newsie. And it's funny that she's become much more political over the last few years.
You know, I took a big
Interesting.
break. I think we both took a pretty big break, or we have gone through breaks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You mentioned last week your kind of conversion towards libertarianism. And it's worth, but maybe not right at this moment, but talking a little bit about my own. I'm pretty conservative, but I have had a hard time finding a home in the last few years.
It's hard to find a home, I think, in either party right now.
Yeah, that's definitely true. And so I've become a lot more of and I don't necessarily want to spend a lot of time on this, but I've become a lot more of a issue voter, even voting. Yeah. I just, like a particular, like this is the most important issue to me. This is what I'm going to vote on, as opposed to
Right.
a lot of allegiance.
Well, let's talk about that. Let's explore it a little bit, because I think it's important to note why we've gone through some political changes. And part of that is maybe because, like our sons that we experienced, if we were ultra right conservatives, we would not vote for gay marriage.
Right. That's correct.
So then what a conundrum to be in, to feel like you have to be pigeonholed into this. I have to be this way and I can't budge or I'm going to lose my card. But yet I have my son here who's gay, and I feel like he should have the right to choose to be married or not.
Well, my father always would lecture me because I like being attached to a party. And it's probably the same reason why I am active in the church, is because I like being attached. I like having those kind of commitments.
Right.
Being part of that kind of group. But my father would always, since I was much younger, would lecture me about why I should be an independent and shouldn't stick with any party. That, basically,
wow.
They are a poor substitute for thinking.
Wow. It's funny, as I had, I'm going to mention my mother, and it's so funny because she said, I watched your podcast, but I had to stop watching halfway through because I just knew you were going to talk about me in a bad way. Like she just knew. She had to stop the podcast halfway because she knew that something negative was going to come up about her.
Well, I think you and I agreed we were not discussing parents until they're dead. I'm
sorry, Mom, to even say that. Even that's going to bother her.
Oh, but, really? Good. Well, no, I didn't mean, okay. You know what? Okay. Yes, but we are not talking about power
for the last 15 seconds. We might cut it out. No, I'm kidding. No, she used to tell us to always vote Republican. Always.
Right.
Vote Republican. And she was a teenage Republican club member, whatever it was, the stuff they had back then. They still have it today. She was Republican, always vote Republican. She voted for Obama. She ends up voting for Obama, so, and that was huge. And I don't feel it as hypocrisy. She's has every right. And I think she went through a political evolution, of course. And part of that is because she does have grandchildren who are Black.
Well, I have to tell you that when And I kind of mentioned this last time that, you know, in Indiana, we just don't have that many members.
No.
And when I go on to like the church's Facebook page, or really any place where a lot of members are commenting, it's upsetting how often the comments have to be shut off because they get to be so racist and they get to be really quite mean. And really, it seems like an expectation that everyone will vote that person's way, or they are somehow not keeping their covenants. And I watched Dallin Oaks speak, not at the last conference, but at the one before, where he said, you know, you can vote for any party and still be a faithful member. I then went on his Facebook page to like say, thank you, Elder Oaks. That was a great talk. And I read people saying that was false, you know, saying that you can't be, well, the big one was you can't be a Democrat. And I don't identify myself as a Democrat, but you can't be a Democrat and have a temple recommend.
Yeah, it's an old standing joke, right?
It's the old standing, you know, and despite the fact that President Oaks had literally just said the opposite. And I have to be honest, the statements like that make me want to, I have this contrarian nature where when people push toward one edge, I tend to push back almost regardless of which side they're pushing from, if that makes sense.
Yes.
So like I said, that really concerned me as far as, again, I don't experience that in my ward at all. But seeing that come from members was very disappointing.
It's really interesting what you said. I have experiencing defending presidents who I didn't maybe not have voted for. I'm not politically behind, just to defend them.
Yeah.
I actually, it just popped in my head when you said it, because I defended Trump, but I was not a Trumpster. I was not a Trump guy. I just was able to say, okay, I can separate who he is, and I'm just going to say I didn't like him as a person, right? But then also to be able to say, you know what, I think he did that right. That was horrible. That was pretty good. That stunk, you know. And then just go through the process. And the same thing with Biden. And it's so funny. No, you know, I'm not a Biden fan, but okay. So what I did not mention in the last podcast is I work in the oil industry. And I get pretty aggravated when I see that sticker on the gas pump that says, I did that.
Oh,
no,
Biden?
He didn't. No,
Right.
He did not. This whole situation in GAPRA, and they're coming down. It's not really as a hot button topic anymore, but it is so incredibly complicated that the president doesn't have that kind of power. And he actually doesn't even have that much power to even lower it.
Right. No.
Yeah, it's a huge beast of an industry. And to sit there and just whittle it down to one little saying, no.
So if I can go back though, it is very difficult to want to associate yourself though with the conservative movement when there is a pretty heavy part of the conservative movement that is so anti-gay rights.
Right.
To where in my life, I have probably voted for Republicans 90% of the time, at least.
Really?
And I have started just as standard on the presidential election. I vote for my wife. I write her name in.
I would vote for Charlie for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. She'd be better than anybody who's run in certainly the last 40 years.
You know, and that's the thing about being libertarian, you almost feel like you're throwing your vote away.
Oh, yeah.
You know, but you want to keep pushing. And you know what a lot of Americans I don't know if they process and realize, when you get over to Europe, some political party, they might only have one with like 8% of the vote, 10% of the vote. There's so many political parties.
Yeah.
You know, the two-party system is kind of rare in the world. Anyways, that's a boring topic, but
it was getting, I even was thinking about that before you got there. I thought, man, we gotta talk about something interesting.
Well, so on the topic of politics, you and I both just talked about this. What are we going to do about politics? It's so divisive and it's so dividing, right? And we're a more light, more fluffy, more comedy entertainment,
You know it. We're Lucille Ball, right?
are
Um,
we?
I don't know. Yeah, I think we should avoid it for the most part.
For the most part, even though we do have some pretty strong political opinions,
Yeah,
but they're going to swing all over the place. That's the thing about us is we could swing one way and say, you know what, this is exactly how I feel about this. We could alienate half of our audience, but then the
a good
next
goal.
week we can bring them right back in.
Yep. That's a good goal. Every week we should try to we should pick one
Yes.
segment to just completely alienate.
Did I say on the last podcast that I expected to lose about 28% of my friends and family through this?
I don't remember that. Maybe I don't remember.
It's a good number. It's a good solid number.
Well, if I can lose 28% of my family, then it's all worth it. I mean, that sounds like a tremendous goal.
You just did it, I think. I think you just did it.
So I did want to, that brought me up to a topic that is 23andMe. Do you know what this is? It's
I
the
believe that's like a
DNA.
DNA test, right?
That's the DNA testing, and you put it on there and you find
This
out all
seems
these
like a
people.
boring subject, to be honest.
Well, I'm just going to say, I have a real fear that I have other brothers and sisters out there that I'm not
From
aware
who?
of.
From who? From what? From who?
My parents have been married a total of like 10 times.
Right.
And they
Why
weren't,
wouldn't they tell you about siblings that they may?
well, I mean, I'm saying a lot of times, if you're indiscriminate with your behavior, I mean, I don't think that you always know.
So that I think this audience would find that fascinating. Like, at what point, like, if you do add up all of your siblings, half step siblings,
Oh,
where are you at?
it's like 30 or something. It's insane. And I have like 2 that I communicate with. And
Right.
my big fear of going in to do something like that is that I would discover there were even more that I would then not have contact with.
Okay. Oh man. Okay. So we said that. Oh my gosh, we did say parents. I experienced it. I experienced it, and it's out there. So I don't know if it's really something I should hide. But my dad might watch this. It's out there. Sorry, Dad. You told me, and we know. And there was. I have a half sister that we just found out about last couple of years. Yeah.
Have you tried to reach out to her?
No, she doesn't want any contact from really any of us.
I have a sister who is, I'm not exactly sure what she was born. Okay, I'm just got word from my producer back here that I'm not allowed to say this. Am I really not allowed to?
Yeah, no, I'll remind you why.
Okay, she says that there's a big reason and that she will remind me when this is over of why I'm not allowed to speak on this. Were we going to have a guest today?
You know what? I didn't set anything up, but we will. We're going to start that very soon. We could possibly do it. Well, we'll talk about it, the schedule. Because as one thing about producing things is you have to fool the audience that we actually, it's like we didn't record this ahead of time and put it out. This is all, it's all magic. It's Hollywood magic.
Yes.
So we can never reveal what time and day this actually is. Right? It's all about production value.
We
and
can't.
No, it's very, you have to be very mysterious. It's like you can't sit there and say, like on a game show, how game shows, they'll actually record like 4 shows or 5 shows at once.
Right. That's right.
Right. The host just goes and changes. That's what we do. Oh, did I just say that? Did I just say that we just change clothes in between takes?
You have, I'm not sure
Ruined.
is what, I don't know why
I
this
just
is
ruined the whole magic of the podcast.
That's it. It's over.
Done.
It was a good try.
Yeah, we don't have to talk about anything that I feel a little bad about bringing up what I did, but it was hard. It was hard to kind of go through finding out that I have an older half sister. That was hard. What you can kind of understand it. What's harder is they want nothing to do with us.
Yeah. Well, maybe that's an indication she's actually heard of you.
Possibly.
So, Okay, so I do have a story about okay. So I have an older half brother,
Okay.
and his name is Stephen.
Perfect.
And you might ask why? 'Cause
Why? Yeah.
my name is Stephen, and why would my brother have my
Okay.
name?
I know exactly what the answer is.
Tell me.
Like that movie Twins. You guys were both produced in a lab. You got all the bad stuff.
I'm the
So
runt.
he's
I know, right?
Bad Steven, right?
His name is Eric Stephen. And when my parents, he was my father's son, not my mother's. And when my parents got married and had a child, I believe I was named after him.
Were you like the redo or something?
I do not, I mean, that's that, and I my mom, I know that she didn't tell me why, but she was very particular about the way my name would be spelled. And so my name is spelled with a V.
Shocking.
Sten, and he has the PH.
My name is actually Anthony, spelled with an I. It's not. It's not.
Oh, I was gonna say what? No, but this was in an effort to, I guess, for my mom to separate me from this older brother.
Bizarre.
So that's why I don't want to find other siblings out there.
It's so awkward.
Yeah.
It's, and so many people have gone through this. So awkward. So did I ever tell you that? So with my second wife, she was adopted by a doctor and a professor, right?
I knew that.
Yep. So they're pretty open. They're really good about talking about it. I don't know what point, I don't remember the history, but at some point when she wanted to find out more, it sounds like it's like the 1960s, but the adoption agency, the center, the whole building itself burned down, and they lost all of their records. And so they had no connection. All they had was this like redacted version of like the paperwork that came from the adoption agency. It was all redacted, and it was so hard to follow, and there was nothing. There was no trail.
That sounds like a poorly written thriller.
It's a B movie, right?
Right? Like
well, she did that DNA test, and one day she got an email saying that she had a match, a biological match, and it was father. It was her father.
Oh,
and,
wow.
Yeah, so they found each other, and it was really, it's really good for her. I mean, that was after the divorce. This is after we started losing connection, and at a certain point she got remarried, and we have no contact. So I don't really know if her life's improved, but I know she moved to Texas where he lived. So I'm assuming things are great. I think it was a really, really good experience for her.
I thought part of the reason you guys split was because she couldn't move.
Dude, do you want it? I know.
You don't have to
it
go to the
wasn't
whole
just
story, but I'm saying, like, I thought that was like a really big deal.
So one day I get a message from our bank, like our bank that we use together, and I open it, and it's like so the message was, your frozen funds are now available, and click this link to check out your balance or whatever. I'm like, what is this about, right? So I click on it, and I'm actually able to get into her account, which is like blowing my mind. I'm like, how do I even have access to her account still? Right?
Oh, this was after you split?
Yes, way after. She's okay. So I find out, this is how I find out she moved to Texas, because it's on her statement. Here's her address. And I'm like, she moved to Texas? She told me she could not move out of Connecticut. Then she changed her last name, which she refused to change her last name to her. So she's her new husband's last name. And she gave me so much crap for taking a loan or taking money on my 401k. And that's what that money was. It was a huge lump sum of her 401k. So it was like 3 hits in a row. Right. What do you do? I mean, so
Well,
it's
she
just
must
like,
have really liked that new guy a lot better than you.
that's right. And, you know, at the end of the day,
So
it was,
Charlotte just said, tell me you didn't want to be married to me without saying you didn't want to be married to me.
exactly. That's a great meme.
Yes.
Sorry.
Now she's apologized. Do you remember the first time I'm going to interject with this story. Well, this is right after you guys had moved in and Charlotte was supposed to go out with Sarah for a girls' night.
Mm-hmm.
And Charlotte ended up getting vertigo and went to the hospital. Do you remember that?
Vaguely, yes.
So Sarah calls Charlotte's phone number and Charlotte's in the emergency room. And so I pick up the phone and I say, hey, Sarah, this is Steve. Charlotte's in the emergency room. She's not going to be able to make it tonight. I said, her gonorrhea has really flared up. And your wife at the time just said, oh, okay.
Okay. Yeah.
She hung up. And it was, of course, I said nonsense like that all the time.
All the time.
And it was like 4 years later when I realized and found out that she had believed me. And this whole time was going with that. So that was a miscommunication.
Right.
And she still stays married to me, like after all of this.
Well, what I love too is since you are a mental health therapist and you didn't get to brag enough about your degrees and your schooling and
things no one is interested in.
Well, let's just put it at this, that another famous Charlie quote is that you were at some point collecting degrees as like a hobby.
Yeah, she did say that.
Okay. So one thing I loved too was every time she'd say, Steve, I had this strange dream last night. And you'd say, tell me about it. And she goes into this long description. She's like, what does that mean? And she it's all this investment into the story. And you're like, it means you're a lesbian.
Every time. I have hoped for 24 years and nothing. Not even remotely interested.
Wow. I'm sorry, man. That sucks.
There's just these little things in life that you have to overcome. This happens to be one of mine.
Speaking of things to overcome, the scratch.
The what?
The scratch.
The scratch.
On my car.
Oh, yes. Yes. I wasn't sure what the hell you were talking about, but yes, you sent me a picture and you said that you have, so that was Jillian who did that?
No, Jillian is 10 years old. She would not do that.
Who did it?
So I'm not going to say her name. I don't really have permission for names, but it's funny because when it happened, the person knew I had a podcast and she's like, you're going to talk about this on your podcast, aren't you? And I'm like, yep.
So this was somebody you were dating?
So I'll set it up. Yeah. So I'll set it up. So this is a former girlfriend, right?
Ah, this is why.
Well, we dated
Boy, tell you what.
in 2020. She, some just minor details. She's a doctor. She's widowed with 4 kids, 2 of the youngest.
Oh, I remember.
You do remember her.
I do remember her. Yes.
So her 2 youngest are twins.
I didn't realize you guys were still talking.
Okay. So 2
I don't mean,
subjects
I'm sorry.
in one.
That's a
No,
totally
2 subjects in one, because I am proud that I can still talk to exes for the most part. Now, Sarah and Ellie just, we can't count her. She's just, we have no kids. We have nothing together.
She's your rebound.
Lasted for 2
you
months.
got divorced. You had to get a rebound marriage out of the way. You did it. Because Mormons don't procreate we don't mate indiscriminately. You get married and you get married to somebody who is not good for you. Then you get divorced and then you find at some point your actual
Yes, maybe for another podcast, that'd be great to talk about and
I
rehash
would like
all
to.
of that stuff, all of that pain, just bring it right back up.
There you go.
By the way, just another ADD side note. That is the suckiest thing with dating. I don't know if you've ever processed this, but every time you meet a new person, you have to relive and recount and retell your divorce story
Oh, you do.
every time.
There's no point where you can just say, listen, you had a bad experience. I had a bad experience. Let's just not.
No, there's too many details, and the thing is, if you're vague, then it seems
It
mysterious.
seems
and then
like you're hiding something.
Right. Right. So anyways, so I do like that I can still talk to exes.
Sure.
It's a nice, I wear it as a badge of honor. It doesn't happen obviously with everyone, but with her it is. We're cool. We realize we're not going to work. But she also values me in certain ways because
Like
she is
you do things for her.
I do things for her. Right. So normally her husband did everything, did all the car maintenance, did all the car, all that stuff, house repairs, everything. Right. So that's tough. So that's what it was. She sent me a quote. She said, does this seem right? And I'm like, you are getting hosed on this quote. This is completely wrong. It was $2,600 or something for an AC compressor replacement. And the AC compressor costs about $200 and labor should only be about $300,
Ooh.
So yeah, it was bad. So I said, you know what? I'm going down to Tennessee in a few weeks. Let's order the part. I'll fix it. Right. She says, great. There was a little bit of miscommunication with the planning, but regardless, I'm there. I've got the part. I'm doing it. My hands are knee deep, and that doesn't make sense, but they're in the engine bay, right? I'm greasy. And I noticed in my peripheral that her 3-year-old daughter is making this motion on my hood. This and it's a stone driveway, right? A limestone driveway. And I'm like, I just quit tuning. I'm like, oh no, Katie, no. I just said her name.
Nobody knows who Katie is, though.
No one knows. And we go, and she darts. I mean, she immediately drops the rock and darts, right? And there on my hood is a nice scratched in little scribbling artwork. Yeah.
So
Killed me. You want me to be honest? It killed me inside. And I have not had small kids around. And the thing is, I've not had nice vehicles either. If
right.
kids had ever done this, it wouldn't have bothered me.
Yeah. I remember having a neighbor and his kid hit my minivan with a baseball, and the kid came over and apologized. And I'm like, which dent is it? There's so many of them.
You knock some more rust off. Big deal.
Yeah.
I wonder if people just saw everything that popped up on my screen.
No. So here's my question though. What are you doing about that? Like, are you just,
I wonder if she's going to listen to this because what?
Did you hurt the child?
No, of course not. See, part of it is like part of it is like, I don't know. What did you say? Was
like,
that
like, of course not, like, you're winking at me and I'm like, oh, I got it.
So, I'm actually really proud of myself because as you grow older, if that happened to me, if I did have a nice vehicle as a 25, 26-year-old husband, father, I think I would have lost it.
Yeah.
To be honest. Right. And so it's like, I processed it really quickly. It did hurt me inside. And the reason is like, I've actually gone over this moment several times in my head. The reason is I really do care about I'm a car guy. You know that. I'm a car guy. I bond with my cars and I take care of them. I detail them. I wax them. I do all the maintenance on them. In my entire life, I've taken my car to a mechanic twice. That's it. Once when I was 17 and I had to do with timing and you had to own a timing gun. It would cost me $75 to buy a timing light or pay a mechanic $75 to fix it. So that's what I did. Paid him to fix it. The second time was to rebuild a transmission because I don't rebuild transmissions. Everything else I've done. Same with my house. I've never hired a contractor, right? So that's kind of the history or the background behind it. So it hurt. But I wasn't mad. I was not angry. I just felt sadness. That's the category I put it in, sadness. And then she quickly reminded me that I was basically being sad over a car.
That's what the old girlfriend did.
Yes.
But it's not like it's I don't know. Yeah, I mean, that's true. Yeah, I mean, I get it.
So, then it's like, she mentioned about paying for it, and I'm like, okay, let's just, for me, I'm just like, let's just stop everything. And that's the path we're going to go down, that it can be fixed.
That's good. Good for you.
I do. That's why I want to bring it. I feel really
Yeah,
proud
no,
about
seriously. I
myself.
mean, you're right. Because I imagine myself at 25, and I would have, my head would have exploded,
Right. You can't, how long it took me to learn that you can't have anything nice with kids? It took me forever to learn
Apparently
that.
still. You
Well,
can't have
that's
anything
the
nice
other
if your
thing.
friends have kids.
Well, that's the other part of it. It's like, I thought about grandchildren. What if that was my grandchild? Right.
That's why though grandparents are always so chill, because you're older. If they do that to your car, you go, whatever. You finally got some money.
Finally have money, can take care of it. It's going to cost me $200-300.
Right. I was telling, and I've been talking to my kids about this. I'm like, including the kids that I work with, because so many of them have such terrible examples of, like, they don't see people working hard and getting ahead.
Right.
And we talk about, choices, and not the little guys, but, as they go into their teenage years. And I've told my kids, I've said, having money doesn't give you fewer problems, but it does allow you to solve the 90% of your problems that can get
Correct.
resolved with money
Mhm.
much faster. Which
Right.
is why I would like to have more. I mean, honestly, I'd like to have more. I've got other problems that I could deal with.
I told you that I'm part of a few singles groups, right?
Yes. Yes. You've told me this.
So I'm fairly proud that I helped create a group called the LDS Singles. Well, it used to be LDS Singles. It's just called LDS Jokes and Silliness Group. Okay. That's what it's about, jokes and silliness. And someone posted a meme. It's Oprah laying on a couch. And the first sentence is, Oprah saying, the key to having peace in your life is, and it's kind of like ... And the bottom it says, have $1 billion.
That helps.
So it's like, yeah, it's really fun. And this is what I love about comedy. You start thinking about it. Yeah, of course, it's hard to take advice from Oprah, right? I would take advice from Oprah, how she got where she got. That's great. She has a great story. She worked extremely hard, right?
Right.
She went through crap as a Black female reporter in the 80s, right? So she deserves, it's not that, she's well deserved, but now it's like she's so disconnected from reality. It's very difficult, but she's still fairly popular. So
yes. So
I need to mask some names that you're going to know who I'm talking about.
Oh, good.
A professional in a ward that oh man, I don't know. I'm sure they're going to listen. I almost thought about, like, during the podcast, I should like message you and say, I'm talking about so-and-so next. So just act, don't give anything away. So I'm just going to reduce it down to where we know someone who makes a lot of money and their spouse, is going around doing their own business. And now that spouse is giving advice about what they're doing in their business. And I'm like, that's great. But you have a spouse that makes an incredible amount of money and you cannot lose.
We have talked about, and if this isn't, I'm not trying to get, but we have talked about, my wife and I, how in the church there are all these, because being a stay-at-home mom is something that a lot of people do. That, in any ward, half of the women are running these, half of the sisters are having these businesses out of their home.
Right.
and that we often hear from them on how wonderful it is. Oh, it's so great. I'm selling car wax or whatever out of my home.
Yeah, car wax.
I have no, and
Let's just go with car wax.
there's nothing, I mean, it's not bad. It's not wrong, but I do sometimes feel like sending them a copy of my wife's 401 W2 and saying, she's mad at me now. One of the things that we probably should just get out there is that my wife makes twice what I do.
That's wonderful.
So I am a trophy husband. That is why I spend so much time on my appearance. It is why I spend so much time taking care of her.
So,
I know who drives my gravy train.
Right. So how young will her new husband be once she gets rid of you?
As soon as I just wait for the time when she realizes what she's stuck with. Like she's like, at some point she'll have this moment where she goes, "You mean I don't have to have someone say these terrible off-color jokes to me all night long?" Well, she just said that as long as I keep doing the laundry, we're fine.
Perfect.
I feel like that is a thin tightrope to be walking. Like
you could ruin it at any time.
I was going to say at any moment, like I said, at some point she's going to look at my, I don't know, whatever the opposite of having abs is. And she'll look at that and she'll say, "Oh, you're so heavy," and, because how early on when you're together and you're intimate and she's saying nice things and it's romantic, and the longer you're together, the more she says things like, "Oh, you're sweating so much."
I got the "Are you done yet?"
She's mad at me. She's yelling at me.
Well, Stephen, like we talked about the first podcast, the fact that she's stuck around all these years,
it speaks poorly of her.
She's a saint. She's earned her sainthood.
Yes, she has.
We all know it.
They're going to make a candle of her at some point.
A candle of her?
Have you seen that? Like the Dolly Parton candle? And oh my gosh.
I'm in Pigeon Forge and I don't know what you're talking about.
Oh, snikes. Okay, I'm going to look that up really quick.
Really? Are we going to share screens? This is great, because at some point we need to start sharing screens and having examples.
So
we also need to hire someone to Google stuff for us while we're talking.
Well, if you mean hire in that we're not ever going to pay them, that sounds great.
Interns, of course. Yeah.
It says that you have disabled my screen sharing.
Perfect. I think we'll keep it that way, just in case we don't want to see exactly what you're searching for on Google. We don't really want to go through each other's search history.
But if you just Google Dolly Parton candle, like hundreds of different candles of Dolly Parton come up. So that's my point, is at some point we'll have a Charlotte candle.
Seems very Catholic to me. That's my first thought, was it seemed very Catholic, a very Catholic thing to do.
There's nothing wrong with things being very Catholic unless they're on the Supreme Court. That seems to be an issue.
Right. Well, there again, I just alienated all the Catholics. We just lost all the Catholics from our podcast.
Well, I feel like Catholics, in all seriousness, as a group, are more comfortable with people saying negative things about their religion than maybe any other religion.
That is true. That is true. There's so many jokes out there. So as another background for us, because people are still getting to know us, you're one of the first friends I've had where you made me feel like it was okay to talk about and explore other religions without it feeling sacrilegious. So you and I did the man, I just lost the word, but it's where it's like a labyrinth, right? Where you go into a labyrinth and you say prayers and you go around the circle and meditate. It's basically kind of a religious meditation.
At some point we'll have Case on, and he's the first one who ever took me to the labyrinth. And I have a master's degree.
Oh, toot, buddy. You know what, though? I just told a friend tonight that if you don't blow that horn every once in a while, it goes rusty.
Well, all right. So I have a
That's
master's
that's my
degree in
saying.
theology from a Baptist school. And I mean, it was very interesting to learn. I mean, I didn't go in there with the idea of converting anybody. I just went in there I wanted to learn their point of view on topics. And it was very interesting. And I didn't convert at all.
Shocking.
But I mean, you know, one of the things that, for instance, in that was I'd be in one class and they would say, well, the Bible clearly says this. On, say, the last days, they'd say, you know, it says X. And then I go to the next class and they'd say, now, when talking about the last days, the Bible clearly says Y, and it would be different. They would disagree with each other, which is okay.
Yes.
But as a coming from our church, where there's such a push, especially over the last 50 years, to make everything correlate, every piece of doctrine fit. And if it doesn't fit, then we just stop talking about it. Then
Right.
it was very interesting to see that difference.
I have a very old quote in my head from, I want to say Taylor, and it's so long, but the basic premise is that any source of truth, he wants to seek after it. Wherever
Sure.
truth is, right?
Sure. I know that that's an
So
ideal.
far from that, right? Like, I feel like people get so incredibly scared. All I'm going to say is, without bashing people or our church or whatever, our leaders, I feel like people show you how weak their faith is all the time. All the
Well,
time.
I mean, I probably do too.
We all do. It's not I'm above it. I'm just saying I do it too. We all do it. But I'm just saying that, yeah, if you sit there and said, hey, I just read this great book from a Catholic priest, people go, oh my gosh, why are you reading that?
Well, I know that I read the book Misquoting Jesus, which
great.
is a very I enjoyed it, but this is back in Huntington, and an older sister, one of our, well, Thompson, you know, who will certainly at some point be on here. He told her that, I'm not sure how it came about, but told her that I had read that book, and it was very upsetting to her that I had read a book that was.
You also talked about literalism in Sunday school, and you got people to stand up and testify against you.
Oh, that did happen.
That did happen.
Well, I remember the time I said that Adam and Eve had genitals, and that was very, although like a couple of people thought that was pretty cool, but yes, I do remember. Now, Thompson one time said that maybe parts of the Abraham story were metaphorical, and
Shocking.
an older, beautiful, wonderful sister stood up and said, I testify that Abraham was a real person. And I always envied Thompson the fact that he got her to do that.
Should we talk about the time you made a 15-year-old girl cry in Sunday school because you called your wife sexy?
Well, that wasn't the whole story.
Please tell the story.
Well, okay. So, okay. In fact, so I'm substitute teaching for like the 13-year-olds. Okay. Mm-hmm. Now my son was in that class, and they kind of asked me at the last minute to sub, and I said, sure. And so we go in, and I just decided I was going to, which is how, you know, anytime my kids are in the room, whatever I'm doing is for them.
Right.
And if anybody else happens to overhear and get something out of it, that's great. So we were reading from the book of Moses, where it said that Moses held, at the last days, Satan would be looking at the earth and have the earth in chains and be laughing. And I said, what kind of things does and my wife was in the room with me. She was there. And I had said she was I had talked about her being attractive earlier. So that kind of happened before the story where the girl started crying. And that was that I said, now what kind of things is part of the chain? And nobody said anything. I said, okay, I know this is hard because this is church. We're not supposed to talk about these things. So I'm going to whisper it. And I said, things like sex. And so that girl got up and she left the room crying. And later
This
on,
is
her
not at all
father
the story I'm thinking of.
committed adultery. And I felt, you know whose daughter that was.
Yes, but this is not at all the story that I remember.
Well, maybe I made a different girl cry.
Because what I remember is, yes, you were like a last minute sub for a class,
That's always bad.
right? And then the rolling joke at the time was you weren't Brother Center, you are Charlotte's husband, because
That
Charlotte
was a
was
thing
so
that
popular.
got said. Yes, because she went from being Young Women's president
Right,
to Relief Society president.
right,
And at that point, she was essentially the queen of all women.
exactly.
Yes.
People worship and adored her, so that's how you would introduce yourself.
So I would introduce myself as Brother Charlotte Center.
Right.
You know, Charlotte's husband. Charlotte. Yes, that's right.
Maybe I am getting everything mixed up because I thought you were complimenting your wife that you still thought that she was sexy.
Well, that happened a lot. I remember when her father got ordained to be a high priest back when that was a big thing.
Yeah.
The stake president, who was President Schumard, who's died now. I don't know if you knew that.
Rest in peace.
What?
Rest in peace. He was a great man.
Rest in peace. Okay, guy. Good. No, great guy. Great guy. I didn't mean that.
He really was. He's one of the few that I really admire. So
anyway, President Schumard says to my father-in-law, now who all's here? And in other words, why did these people just walk in? Are they okay to be here? And he says, yes, this is my son-in-law, and I said, yes, and this is my wife, and she's very beautiful. I said, why don't you turn around and let everybody see what we're dealing with here? He goes, oh no, sister, you're gonna have to put up with this for eternity.
I did not know that story.
It's a good story.
Well, regardless of the details, you did make a little girl cry.
At least one.
And yes, and then I have no problem talking about this guy that we're talking about, who eventually, yes, did some terrible, terrible things to his family and his wife.
Here's my thing. When somebody tries to present themselves as so righteous, I feel like that's a red flag.
100%.
I mean, they don't
100%.
have to. They don't have to chew tobacco and spit and cuss and sacrament meeting. But I remember when my wife was his wife's visiting teacher, and she told my wife and my wife's companion that he didn't like them watching television during the day because he didn't like what it brought into the home. I mean, that kind of thing,
I didn't think that. I was going to say, I didn't think they have a television at all.
Well, here's what I know. When I found out that he left his wife and he, all that, it did not change my view toward him at all. It was exactly who I thought he was.
Well, amen to you. But can I tell we're about at the time we were told to keep these between 45 minutes and 60 minutes, right? Which is what our goal was already.
All right. So finish up your story, then we'll end.
My favorite story associated with this family is that I had organized a family game night, right? And so we were sitting around playing board games, and we were one of the last to kind of be around. Is Sarah, you, me, Sarah, and Charlotte, and then it's fine to say their names, right? I don't know if it matters.
Should.
Okay, so then this couple, right, that we're talking about, and we're playing Battle of the Sexes.
Oh yes.
Right? Yeah. And so the whole point of Battle of the Sexes, if people don't know, it's a very sexist game.
It's awful. But it's funny. It's awful, but it's awful. Like you're not surprised by it.
The whole premise is you move pieces on this board, and whoever, it's like almost like checkers in a way. But then to get to be able to move a piece, you have to answer a card that the women will ask you that is about like sewing, some technical term about sewing, and we're not supposed to know about it. And then when we ask them a question that's some technical term about fishing and they're not supposed to know about it, right?
Right. Right.
So the question that we got was, what is the best way to catch crabs? And I said immediately, I said, a little black dress.
Beautiful.
It
Beautiful
was
answer.
so witty and so quick, right?
Funny. Yes, absolutely.
And the husband that we're talking about, he was so upset
Mortified.
by that, but his wife at the time was laughing, right?
Yes.
I almost felt bad because I felt like because she laughed, she was going to get lectured when she got home.
Well, it's important for men to make sure that they keep their ladies thinking correctly.
In pure thoughts, right? That is our job.
You've got to monitor their thoughts, or God knows they might be happy one day.
Well, Steve, it's always good. I love our podcast. I really do. They're still kind of for us, but the fact that people do watch it is amazing. It warms my heart.
Tell him what I said about it.
My wife told me, she listened to it and she said, Steve, I feel like I've been listening to this podcast for the last 12 years.
Haven't you missed it, Charlotte?
She misses nothing about you.
Nothing. Okay.
All right.
It's only going to get worse. But the thing is, the other correction I do have to finish is that I just said it again, a boys' night, where it's not going to be a boys' night. We are going to have different people on than just our inner circle.
Although I want the inner
women.
circle on.
Yeah, we'll have the inner circle on, but it's not just going to be our boys, and it's not going to just be a boys' night. The compliment that I've gotten a few times is that the women who have watched it love to see the male perspective, but we want a female perspective too. So we're gonna do that and make sure we focus on that.
My wife just said she wants to be the first guest.
Perfect. I love it.
I feel like I should be part of it.
She feels like she needs to correct a lot of things you've said. That's not what she said, but that's what I think she's going to be. All right.
Okay.
All right, Tony, be cool.
Can I just say, Charlotte, I've always loved, not just with Steve, but with you as well, that you are never, I trust everything that you both say to me because I know I'm getting things unfiltered. They're unbiased. They're from a place of love, even if it's bad, something corrective.
I'm not sure Charlotte loves you at all, but okay.
I feel she does.
All right, Tony, hang up on me.
She does. All right. Love you, man.
Bye-bye.
Bye.